ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما.
That Allah may forgive for you what was seen of your sin and what will follow, and continue to favor upon you and guide you to the straight path.
وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا.
And that Allah may aid you with mighty victory.
صدق الله العظيم.
परवाज़ है दोनों की इसी एक फिजा में, परवाज़ है दोनों की इसी एक फिजा में, करवल का जहां और है शाहीन का जहां और. Respected speakers and guests, Assalamu alaikum. Everyone present here on behalf of the Center for Peace, Security and Development Studies. CPSC is an independent, non-partisan and multi-dimensional platform with the vision of being a think tank of international stature for sustainable development and conducting research on peace and security issues of the South Asian region. In general, CPSC's mission is to project strategic foresight on the issues of national and international significance. Distinguished guests, our seminar on radical India versus responsible Pakistan will commence with the opening remarks from Director General CPSC, followed by speeches and addresses from eminent speakers who graced us today with their time and presence. Videos and infographics will also be displayed during the seminar to enlighten the audience on the essence of the topics addressed today. The program will be divided into two parts with a stretch break in between, and lunch will be served at the end of the seminar. The President of Pakistan will also be joining us as our chief guest, and upon his arrival, an announcement will be made. So please rise from your seats in his honor at the time.
It's terrorism, but we will see India change dramatically. Narendra Modi arrival in India political figure came to power, with another election drawing near, and anti-Pakistan rhetoric being the best-selling point. India's aggressive designs were becoming clear. Pakistan was also anticipating a possible false flag by India, as has always been the case. When an Indian security forces convoy was attacked, killing 40 Indian soldiers, India immediately held Pakistan responsible for the attack. A barrage of accusations was hurled against Pakistan. The Prime Minister of Pakistan offered complete cooperation in the investigation of the incident. In the early hours of February 26, 2019, Indian jets violated Pakistan's airspace, meeting an immediate response from the Pakistani Air Force. Indian jets released their payload inside Pakistani territory and retrieved. The British did on February 27, 2019, about 100 hours, loaded with a deadly array of state-of-the-art weaponry, a strike package comprising of a total of 18 Pakistani Air Force planes rolled down the runway for a top-secret mission. One of the devices was flown by a senior Indian pilot, Lieutenant Commander Ananda, who soon after was deprived of situational version of this dispute.
Since the formation of the subcontinent, the Kashmiri men, women, and children have been suffering every day at the hands of the Indian rulers. In the past years, the Indian government's decisions have been giving rise to unimaginable threats to the region, particularly Pakistan and Kashmir. The prevailing extremism in India demands a concrete response from international communities. In this regard, today's seminar is aimed to highlight the thick tension between Pakistan and India, as well as the deteriorating situation of Muslims and Kashmiris in India. This seminar also serves as a platform for constructive and cooperative deliberations and discussions about Indian priorities in the region. To begin, Brigadier Muhammad Zishan Retired, Director General CPSC, will initiate our seminar officially with a welcome address. Commissioned in the Armored Corps in 1987, Brigadier Zishan has served at the operational staff and command assignments. He has been involved in operational planning and strategic analysis and has also been honored with the Sitara-e-Imtiaz. Please welcome Brigadier Zishan, Retired.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected speakers, distinguished guests, the diplomats, members of armed forces, academics, media personalities, and my dear youth, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. I, Brigadier Muhammad Zishan, Director General of CPSD, on behalf of our Chairman, Mr. Abdullah Dadabhai, welcome you all to this entire India exactly a year back. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been 102 days since India occupied Kashmir is under lockdown. Precisely a year ago, the architect of Retaliation, Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, had unleashed an dangerous military version by launching a solar surgical strike. Plunging not only Pakistan, not only South Asia, but the whole world into a crisis of fatal consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, today, through this seminar, we are going to discuss, assess, and facilitate the future of this region. In an environment dominated by religiously organized and politically alienating people in India. Although we have been distinguished speakers who deliberate on the aspects related to this theme, I will very briefly touch on the important factors comprising this environment. Ladies and gentlemen, first, in literary sense, the India is a system of governance and in Pakistan militarily under the pretext of self-defense against terrorism. India successfully aligned itself with the West, being victim of terrorism emanating from Pakistan. In the backdrop, Pulwama happened on 14 February 2019. Indian media and their Hindu leadership immediately started beating the war drums, wanting to teach a lesson to Pakistan as if Pakistan was simple a walkover. Ladies and gentlemen, 26 February morning saw this misconception manifesting through a so-called surgical strike across international border near Balakot. Irrespective of its weaknesses, two underlying objectives were most critical. First, to establish a new norm of launching surgical strike across not only LOC but across international border while subduing the Pakistani leadership and forcing them to accept it as fait accompli. The second objective was to establish that Pakistan is incapable of matching India militarily. Ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly, the day of 26 February was very difficult for every Pakistani. Still, our leadership did not beat the drums of war, and our media maintained a posture of maturity, giving peace a chance. But to our pleasure, our valiant Pakistan Air Force, epitome of professionalism, struck back, and not only struck back, but humbled the so-called three-time bigger, far advanced, equipped with non-centricity, superior electronic warfare in Indian Air Force. The way PF struck at 6 different locations across LOC, intentionally avoiding human and material loss, again established Pakistan's desire for peace, maintaining major response well below a critical threshold in order to deny escalation towards higher runs of conflict. Though the nature smiled at us, and the MiG-21 Bison with Wing Commander Abhinandan was shot down and crashed inside Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, at this hour, on 27 February, with another Su-30 destroyed by PF, an Mi-17 helicopter with a crew of 12 shot down through friendly fire in Indian-occupied Kashmir, Pakistan re-established the deterrence in the conventional and unconventional domains. It was a humiliation for Indian armed forces and the Indian leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to close this argument with the fact that the world maintained an uneasy, neutral posture all through these 90 hours and even beyond. It has only one parallel in the history: the appeasement of Hitler by European powers in the 1930s. A radicalized nuclear India with international support due to its economic leverage is a threat to the peace and security of South Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have amongst us distinguished professionals from different fields who will be deliberating and enlightening you with what happened on 27 February, how it happened, what were the risks, and what is the way forward. Before I conclude, I would like to introduce the Center for our think tank, Center for Peace, Security and Developmental Studies. Ladies and gentlemen, it was previously located at Karachi, but was not new to Islamabad. However, now we have permanently shifted to Islamabad, and you will be seeing us pretty often. Our chairman's vision, Mr. Abdullah Dadabhai, will make a difference in the field of analysis and strategic foresight, as we are equipped with the modern tools of research and projection. Today is our first major event since we arrived in Islamabad, and we hope to regularly contribute in the field of research and strategic foresight. I again thank you all for joining us this morning and hope that your time will be well spent and you will leave more aware and educated on the subject. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable participants, worthy dignitaries, it's an honor for me to be speaking on this particular issue, which is very close to my heart and to all those people who are freedom-loving, who have love for liberty in their hearts. I've been asked to express my views on the historical perspective and legal aspects of Kashmir issue. Let me begin by saying that as far as the legality of Kashmir issue is concerned, insofar as the legal dimension is concerned, Pakistan has a very strong case. Kashmir has a very strong case. The law is on our side. International law is on our side. Human rights law supports our arguments and our stance. The problem is the politics, contemporary politics, and our positioning in the global framework at the moment. Historical analysis, whenever it is focused on a particular issue, and when it attempts to understand or undertake analysis in such a way which is solution-oriented, and one must take cognizance of the sequence of events that took place in the historical framework. This is called the doctrine of historical particularism in sociology and anthropology. Let me elaborate my views within this context. A history of Kashmir and how it has been dealt with so far is a saga of challenges and opportunities. We have had many challenges thrown at us since 1947, and we attempted to handle those challenges one way or the other, some in a better way, some in a not very good manner. We exploited some of the opportunities that came our way, and we missed some of the opportunities. So in order to understand the existing scenario of Kashmir, present day situation in Kashmir in a historical paradigm, we must take stock of both the good that we did and the mistakes that we committed. My understanding is that since 1947, law, insofar as international law is concerned, insofar as human rights law is concerned, it has always been on our side. However, it is the politics which has led us to the present state of affairs. Having said this, in 1949, I believe was the first time when one of the UN resolutions, in fact, projected the issue of Kashmir to a level, and there has been many other resolutions since 1948 as well, then in 1949, but this particular resolution, and I'm not going to get into the technical details of those resolutions, but I'm just expressing my views in a restricted time frame, therefore I'll be just skipping all the legal details. But this particular resolution, in fact, projected a Kashmir issue and gave it two dimensions, basically, in international law. Number one, that Kashmir is an international dispute. Kashmir is a disputed territory. And then secondly, the second development was that the right of self-determination was accorded to the people of Kashmir. It was recognized that the people of Kashmir have a legitimate right to self-determination, and the world community must support it. So the legal framework was in support of the people of Kashmir. However, politically, we were dilly-dallying, and the world was also not that concerned. Because political events, the Cold War, the bipolar world, confrontation between the East and the West, it resulted in sidelining the issue of Kashmir, insofar as the United Nations was concerned. On our part in Pakistan, we kept on emphasizing on solution, its global dimension, Kashmir as an international conflict, and to be resolved in accordance with the principles of international law. But unfortunately, we also missed many opportunities in this regard. Later, in 1966, the United Nations came up with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, wherein the right to self-determination was recognized in the very first article. But no concrete step was taken in this regard by the world community. Again, political compulsions. And we must know, and we must realize that even in today's context, the law is on our side, but politics is questionable. The political situation is questionable. Why? Because we are in a phase of transition from a unipolar world that we saw emerging after the 1990s to a multipolar world. India is positioned on the international scale. It is positioned now as a kind of a member of the quadruplicate alliance or partnership with the US. In 2017, the US political strategy, the new plan, gave a very important position to India in its Indo-Pacific scheme of things. India is exploiting that position. It is also exploiting its position economically. And as Karl Marx once very rightly said, that politics is nothing but perpetuated economies. So politics becomes subservient to economic interests. And that is how India is taking advantage of it. However, it does not mean that everything is lost. It is not. We still have opportunities, and we have opportunities within the legal paradigm. Law, unfortunately, is always subservient to political events. It's reactive in nature. When political events take place, law comes up with its solutions. But then you need political will, and a technique and a strategy to use those opportunities in order to tilt the situation in your favor. We have those opportunities. And I'll just very lightly elaborate upon them because I don't have time to get into the details. Right to self-determination should be projected, should be highlighted, and should be emphasized in all manner. I believe that this attempt by the Indian government and by successive Indian governments that Kashmir is a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan must be resolved by these two states is an argument which has no standing in law, in international law. We must highlight the issue of Kashmir in the context of the right to self-determination before the world community, because the right to self-determination does not relate to a territory. It relates to peoples. And when you emphasize on the rights of the people and violation of their rights, you gain legal advantage over the other argument which relates only to territory. So my suggestion to the government would be to highlight the rights of people of Kashmir which are being regularly violated. Now second, Article 370 of the Indian Constitution, there are weaknesses, these can be exploited. Article 370 of the Indian Constitution was incorporated in 1949 in line with one of the UN resolutions, which declared Kashmir as a disputed territory. However, it has been revoked now. Its revocation is not just a matter of Indian constitutional law or internal Indian issue. Its revocation is a violation of international obligations and commitments that India admitted and agreed to through various international resolutions and the UN resolutions. Modi and his government Sudhanshi Mittal, a BJP leader, has repeatedly asserted that we did whatever we did in Kashmir on the 5th of August 2019 because we wanted development in Kashmir. We wanted foreign investment in Kashmir. And therefore, this revocation took place. The right to development is a collective human rights of third generation. It's a third generation human rights. It must be respected and implemented within the paradigm of international law. You cannot unilaterally abrogate and get out of an international commitment without any legal reasoning and simply expect that the right to development, insofar as international law is concerned, has been respected by you. No, this is not the case. This must be highlighted. I don't usually see these points being highlighted in the media or on a global scale. Now the problem is that there is no time. I've been asked to conclude, so I don't know where to end, but my understanding is, secondly, I'll come to Article 35A. Article 35A has now given this opportunity to the non-Kashmiris to come and invest in Kashmir. This has been called or labeled in international law as settlers' colonialism, as a new dimension, as a new theory of settlers' colonialism. This is also in violation of human rights law and several conventions I can quote, but there is no time. Thirdly, we miss some opportunities. Like, for example, we miss the opportunity of raising the issue of Kashmir and sidelining India when Indira Gandhi, Prime Minister in 1971, admitted that Indian intervention did take place. It supported the Mukti Bani and we supported it for human rights atrocities being committed in India by Pakistani forces in Bangladesh, and that is why we supported it. That was the opportunity to raise this issue at international level, because it was a case of violation of sovereignty of a state and injection of foreign agents in a sovereign state and against the principles of intervention in international law. Secondly, we missed another opportunity when Modi admitted that Indians supported the Mukti Bani. That was also an opportunity. We did not raise a lot of hue and cry. We did not approach those fora internationally available to us. Thirdly, Yadav case. Kulbhushan Yadav was arrested. We basically, I believe, India was smart enough to turn that case into a case of violation of consular rights, a very minor issue in international law. We were supposed to project that as a case of international terrorism and sponsoring of international terrorism, but we could not. Therefore, we even lost, in my opinion, that opportunity as well. But now, what can we do? Very shortly, human rights law, ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council under the UN. Then you have the treaty-based mechanism, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which provides fora for you to raise this issue. Secondly, you have the thematic convention mechanism, like the Convention Against Torture, Convention Against Racial Discrimination, the genocide conventions. There are many conventions available which provide you an opportunity and forum to agitate this issue, to raise it. Because you have to constantly assert the aspect of human rights violation rather than making it a bilateral issue between Pakistan and India on a dispute on the basis of some known territory called Kashmir. No, we should raise it on international fora as a human rights concern and as a consistent and persistent violation of human rights, which comes under, there is a procedure provided for that, which is Resolution 1503 of the UN. Individuals can file petitions there as well. So therefore, I believe that Pakistan must resort to that. And the last point, because there is no time, I won't be able to do justice with what I wanted to do, but the only point that I could say is that we have the International Criminal Code now. And the convention that establishes that code empowers the prosecutor of that code to take action on his own initiative and to bring cases against officials of countries which are involved in violation of international criminal law. Indian officials, especially Amit Shah, BJP leader, these are the people who are personally responsible for ordering atrocities that are being committed in Kashmir and now in Delhi and everywhere in India. We can lobby, we can raise these issues. This is the opportunity to exploit, to commit international court of justice, to initiate proceedings. There are many jurisdictions where cases can be filed for atrocities committed and violation of the Convention Against Torture. Indian officials can be booked and cases can be brought against them. This is called the weapon of lawfare. We must use law as a weapon, and we have many arms at our disposal, many weapons are at our disposal that we can very clearly exploit. But the point is, as I said, the law is on our side. It's the politics which fails the people of Kashmir. And the people of Kashmir, my dear colleagues, Kashmir is a national debt for us. And we owe this debt to the people of Kashmir and to our future generations. Our predecessors could not discharge this burden, this debt. We are also not being able to discharge it effectively. But make sure that you don't leave this debt to the people, to your next generation and to the next generation of Kashmiris. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barrister, for your extensive deliberations on the topic. Of Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front is not only an artist and a social worker, but is also the chairwoman of Peace and Culture Organization. Mrs. Mishal Malik crisis in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the indifference of the West. Please welcome Mrs. Mishal Malik.
First of all, I'm very thankful to CPST for inviting me to this very important conference. And my topic is basically the Kashmir issue and how the West takes it. So it's basically, first of all, I would like to give a small introduction to the respectable people sitting in the audience. That it's a very rare opportunity that people who are directly linked with this conflict or who are leading this conflict can come before the international world and speak about their problems and how they're leading this peaceful political struggle. And right now, my husband, who is the top leader of this movement, he is locked up in the hard death cell for almost a year now. And whatever is happening over there, especially after 5th August, which the previous speaker quite impeccably explained, that this was a lawfare. Because the latest war that is happening in the world now is through the stroke of a pen or a presidential order, that all the rights of the Kashmiri people have been snatched from them. And in simple terms, it's like becoming a refugee in your own land. All your ownership rights are taken away, either through various demography policies that they've announced, of monetization, of seizing all the investments, the savings of the Kashmiri people, and being controlled by the center of Delhi, or citizenship right being given to Indian students who are being shifted to Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir and taking away the educational rights of the Kashmiri people. And you must have seen yesterday pictures of a lot of Kashmiri students running towards school after like almost a year they went to school. But this is also just media stunt, I would say, because of Donald Trump visiting India. But the reality on ground is that this is the world's most prolonged, deadliest, scariest martial law ever to be imposed on an unarmed and a defenseless nation. And all political voices that are representing the pulse of the people, the right to self-determination as enshrined in the UN resolutions, they are all locked up. There's a blanket ban on political mobilization, political processions. They are living under siege literally, and the worst crime ever in the world is genocide, and which is right now being committed over there. And whatever's happening in Delhi, that is part of the game because it was part of the election manifesto, abrogation of Article 370. This RSS terrorist mindset regime that is in power right now, it's so horrifying the effects that it is having on the minorities within India. There is a civil war going on. But what is happening with the Kashmiris, I mean, we're not even Indians, we're not a part of India, but over 70 years, and we are facing this threat, and with each and every passing day, we are seeing the policies of India of hatred, of force, but in any way whatsoever that they have applied to kill the pulse, the sentiment of the people, the anger within our people has grown, it has manifolded. And it's a scary situation because we need a global recognition and responsibility to realize how important it is to resolve this issue peacefully, because last year on 27th of February, nuclear codes were exchanged between both the countries, and this was another proof that this issue is not a national or local or regional issue. This is definitely a global issue. And I am a student of economics, and if you study the Global Peace Index all over the world, it's very, very important to realize how important peace is for economic growth and development. And whatever India is doing right now, and the controls of the nuclear arms are in the hands of Mr. Modi, who has come literally, his winning tactic has been over butchering of the Kashmiris and making it into a bigger graveyard. And right now, we have seen globally also how things have, how the media has reacted, but unfortunately, no substantial steps have been taken to stop India. Either it's just lip service or some articles or some media campaigns, but the world is not realizing that this volcano is going to erupt someday. And especially after 9/11, when the world order changed, it was basically the Kashmiris who were the first to own this, and especially after Bill Clinton, he announced after 9/11 various peace pacts around the world and wanted to solve the Palestinian and the Kashmir conflict. It was the Kashmiris who owned it, and it's a majority, 99.9% peaceful movement right now that's going on, and we are still following that path. Unfortunately, though, we are facing the highest occupation, and India is hell-bent upon provoking the Kashmiri people to go towards violence, because there is absolutely no political space. So I think it's very, very important for the world to come forward and also to realize the international dimensions, and also about the Universal Human Rights Charter, that every human being has a right to honor, dignity and freedom. But unfortunately, it is a pipe dream for Kashmiris. And any kind of solution for the Kashmir issue, when I even met the UN Secretary General who was here in Pakistan in an informal meeting, I shared with him that no matter how many times you offer your good offices, but if the intentions of India is always to avoid, then what more? And I told him quite categorically that the solution to the Kashmir issue lies with the top Kashmiri leadership, who are calling the shots, who are leading the movement. And if they are in death cells, they are being killed, they are being hanged, then who is going to solve this issue? If the world wants to play an active role, then they should move forward. And raise a campaign to release the leadership, because without the leadership, any movement or any solution is impossible. Are we going to go to every Kashmiri and ask them what they want, or are we going to go for the majority of the wave and go forward for a plebiscite? So this is very, very important that we safeguard the leadership over there and the people, lift that curfew, and for that I think a humanitarian, it's my suggestion that a humanitarian corridor must be made to save the people who are literally starving to death right now. Even when I eat food or drink water, I just realize what my family is doing over there. I mean, this is happening in the 21st century. I mean, I'm quite casually talking about this, but this is the reality. This is what we are going through on a daily basis, and it's been numerous curfews that we have faced, massacres, the whole year round. It's a calendar of various death anniversaries of the people, the innocent people that are dying, and we are just... Okay, I'll just conclude it. But in the end, I would just like to propose one more thing, that I think this is the time, I mean, the Kashmiris have done their maximum to follow international norms and parameters for a peaceful solution. Our top leadership, the Hurriyat leaders, they've always welcomed a peaceful solution. And now the biggest obstacle is India. So I think it's time for the international world to campaign for this, for a just solution. And the only just solution, in my opinion, is because we have seen 50 years of bilateralism between India and Pakistan. And each time, India has backed out or ditched the peace processes. So now I think the world must realize that a multilateral solution is the only option, because India has surpassed all bilateral treaties, all dialogues, everything. They've even surpassed their own constitution through a unilateral decision. So I think this should be the focus, and we should move towards a solution, because I don't know, otherwise I see an entire graveyard of Kashmiris becoming extinct, and the only thing would be the handicrafts that you would see in museums of the Kashmiri people, and that would be it. And we would all be like mute spectators. So I think we should, if you want to save the planet, if you want to work for peace, then to stop another nuclear war, God forbid, from happening. So thank you.
Provoking discussion. पंजाए जुल्म जहालत में बुरा हाल किया, पंजाए जुल्म जहालत में बुरा हाल किया, बन के मकराज हमें बेपर बवाल किया, तो उस दस्ता जफाकश को यार जिसने रूहे आजादी कश्मीर को पामाल किया. Our next speaker is Mr. Barrister Taimur Malik, the founder of Pakistan's first legal and analysis portal, Quoting the Law. He is also a partner at an international law firm, a barrister by training, a widely published columnist, and a frequent guest speaker at civil and military training institutes, think tanks, and universities in various countries. Mr. Barrister Taimur Malik is the founder and force behind other civil society initiatives, such as the Pakistan Anti-Terrorism Neighborhood Watch Initiative and the National Law Scholarship Program. Please welcome Mr. Taimur Malik to come up on stage and explain the international perception of the Kashmir issue and opportunities available for Pakistan. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished guests, speakers, and officials of CPSC. To come after two forceful speakers and to be followed by many others is a difficult challenge, and that too to speak on dry legal matters. Allama Iqbal famously said, "Aaj wo Kashmir hai mahkoom o majboor o fakir, kal jise ahle nazar kehte the Iran-e-Saghir." Allama Iqbal said this without realizing what would happen to this paradise on earth. Today, it is not just Kashmir, but hundreds of millions of people belonging to minority groups in our neighboring country that are increasingly becoming marginalized and are mahkoom and majboor at the hands of the totalitarian regime there. This situation has repercussions, both legal and domestic, and I will discuss them briefly today. It is also important to note the context of today's event. We are speaking about Kashmir, but today is also the anniversary of a very important event. An event which saw the radical and aggressive face of our neighbors and saw the mature and restrained face of our nation, our people, our armed forces, and our media. This is also the year in which many changes have been made to the Constitution of India, and various domestic laws have been passed there with international implications. This is also the year when more than 8 million people of Indian-occupied Kashmir remain under curfew. And as the first speaker mentioned, for now, 202 days. This is also the era of lawfare, and not just simply warfare. And I think it's important to make this point here, as both the previous speakers have mentioned, that we have to realize that now the international wars are going to be fought through lawfare more than just arms and ammunition. We live in an era where aggression is being covered through doctrines such as anticipatory self-defense and preemptive self-defense. My brief talk today would focus on 4 key points. First, the international legal position related to the Kashmir issue. Secondly, why it is an international issue and not a domestic one for our neighboring country. Third, the international perception in this respect. And finally, the opportunities and options and the possible way forward for Pakistan and Kashmir. Much has been said over the years about the international legal position. I will recap the key aspects in just 5 points. Firstly, it should be remembered that the first agreement between the Maharaja of Kashmir was a standstill agreement for the provision of certain key services was with Pakistan and not with India. An instrument of accession was finally purportedly signed on 26 October 1947 and accepted the very next day by the then Governor General of India. While we dispute that instrument of accession, it is important to note that it does lay down certain restrictions in relation to what the Indian Parliament could do with respect to the Kashmiri territory. Secondly, the United Nations Security Council Resolution 47 of 21st April 1948 sought a few things. Withdrawal of the Indian troops, establishment of an interim government, and thirdly, an establishment of a 5-member United Nations Commission on India and Pakistan to restore peace and hold a referendum, a free and fair referendum in the Kashmiri territory. Thirdly, if we study the constitution-making debates of the Indian Constitution, it is very clear that the draftsmen and the parliamentarians at that time realized and acknowledged and documented that Kashmir held a separate and significant place because of the UN resolutions and the international attention towards Kashmir. And that the Indian Constitution was not meant to be the sacrosanct and final document when it came to governing the Kashmiri territory. Article 306A, which eventually became the much talked about Article 370, provided for that restrictive law-making ability, which was restricted to defense, foreign affairs, and communications only. The Kashmiris were meant to have the right to legislate and determine their rights themselves in relation to the rest. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 91 of 1951 and Resolution 122 of 1957 both specifically said that the Constituent Assembly established by the Indian government for Kashmir was not to be seen as a replacement of the requirements of previous United Nations Security Council resolutions or an alternative to free and fair referendum in the country. Fifthly, it's important to realize that it's not just in the last 12 months that our neighbor has taken over the power and authority of the Kashmiri people. The 47 presidential orders have been passed over 50 years, which have extended the Indian legislative powers in relation to 260 articles out of the 395 articles of the Indian Constitution. Eventually, on 5th August 2019, through the presidential ordinance Order of 272, Article 350A, 35A, which provided rights through which demographics of the Kashmiri people and the Kashmiri territory could not be changed, was also taken away. We are short of time. I would just like to make a few more points that why is Kashmir an international issue? It is an international issue, firstly, because it was India which took the Kashmir issue to the UN. So that's something we should remember always. Secondly, it meets the definition of an occupying territory as per the Hague Regulations of 1904. Thirdly, an occupation is an international armed conflict, and therefore, under the Geneva Convention, and therefore all the rights and protections available under international humanitarian law are available to the people of Indian-occupied Kashmir. Fourth, ongoing violations of the laws of war and IHL, such as the use of indiscriminate weapons, including pellet guns, make it a very much international issue. Fifth, the more recent unlawful and unilateral attempts at annexation of the Kashmiri territory make it a further internationalized issue. So in relation to, finally in relation to what would Pakistan be doing apart from what has been already been highlighted by the previous speakers and the role of media and other things that are going to be highlighted in the future. We have to see that the implications of the Indian legislator through the Jammu and Kashmir or the Indian-occupied Kashmiri Territory Reorganization Law have far-reaching implications and are in violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions. Because they will end up changing the demographics of the country. Secondly, as we've seen, the Pakistani media showed restraint during the time of crisis this time last year, whereas the Indian media was constantly beating the drums of war. So shouldn't there be an international convention, a multilateral treaty which talks about media responsibility? Surely media should not be allowed to create war hysteria. Thirdly, we have seen this week that despite the situation expanding beyond the borders of Indian-occupied Kashmir and riots taking place, mosques being desecrated and people being killed in Delhi itself, one of the world powers has signed the $3 billion arms deal with India. Surely there should be a movement for some international convention in this respect as well, that the responsible states should not be allowed or encouraged to enter into such agreements with countries such as our neighbor. Fourthly, Gambia took Myanmar to the International Court of Justice because of genocide. It's time to consider who is going to do that in the context of Kashmir. Finally, Pakistan has moral, legal and diplomatic high ground and advantage at this stage. We should not lose it. We should make all attempts internationally and otherwise to de-radicalize our neighbors. But we should remain in line with today's title, Responsible Pakistan. Our prayers with the people of Kashmir and everybody affected by the ongoing crisis there. Thank you.
For your extensive research and intriguing address.
India has struck Pakistan and we have struck the mark. There has to be a forefront war against Pakistan. Shut them down. No reason, no cricket. क्या कर सकता है इंडिया अगर पाकिस्तान से हमें बदला लेगा?
Mr. Fahad Hussain is a renowned news media professional with over 25 years of experience in journalism. He not only spearheaded the launch of 3 channels, Express News, Express 24/7 and Capital TV, but also worked as the anchor at Pakistan's first independent English talk show on GOTV. Please welcome him on stage to discuss the role of media in the form of warmongering and peace journalism. I now invite Mr. Fahad Hussain to the podium.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Brigadier Zishan, for inviting me to this very prestigious forum to speak about what Indian media did last year and how our media behaved. And if you look at what is happening today in India, what's been happening in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, last 1 week, you can understand when a media begins to slide down from its professional standards, there are consequences. There are serious consequences for our society. And what is happening is that essentially in India, the fundamentals of journalism began to break down. And this happened gradually since the BJP government came in. And ultimately, there was a term coined for the Indian media, and I will come to the Pakistani media also. There was a term coined for the Indian media. I'm sure that you've all heard of the term watchdog or lapdog. So now they've coined a term in Urdu, which rhymes with Modi, which goes Godi. So it's called Godi media, जो किसी की गोद में बैठ जाता है. And therefore, because Indian media has started this new trend of, without any question, following state narrative and government narrative, it has failed in asking those very fundamental questions, which should have been asked last year, which should have been asked when India reoccupied Kashmir, and which should have been asked when what happened last year. Now, this is not the only time this has happened. And I want to draw, ladies and gentlemen, I want to draw 1 or 2 very important conclusions from it. In 2003, when America was deciding to go into Iraq, I happened to be working in New York in a media organization, and I saw with my own eyes what happens when media of any country stops questioning. There was warmongering in 2003 in the United States. The American media, which is supposed to be one of the most advanced in terms of their media tradition, refused to question their own government. And they became warmongers. They refused to ask the key question, where are the weapons of mass destruction? And what happened later on, we all know. The same thing has happened in India now. Because the media is not questioning, because the media is not imparting its fundamental duty of asking authority, why are you doing what you're doing? If you do not do that, then you end up with the kind of impact on society which India has just faced in the last couple of years. Last year, we saw India go down, descend into total warmongering chaos. This year, what you're seeing happening is a repetition of that with consequences for Indian society. If I contrast that with Pakistan, last year, when this crisis began, I think there was a sharp contrast between how Pakistani media behaved. We were constantly urging restraint. We were constantly urging the world powers to intervene. We were constantly urging a return to dialogue, and we were constantly arguing that war served nobody's purpose. Allow me to say this, ladies and gentlemen, also, that when it comes to Godi media, there are many in Pakistan who also fit this definition, unfortunately. I don't want to be black and white. There are many things which are wrong with Pakistani media also. There are many media organizations in Pakistan who do not question when they should be questioning, who do not raise red flags when those red flags should be raised. But allow me to also say that we have the courage here to admit our own mistakes. We have the courage here to say that if we are not careful, if our media is not careful, we are also going to slide down the path that Indian media has slid down. However, it makes me satisfied to say that when I contrast how our media behaved last year with how the Indian media behaved, I can still say that in Pakistan there are many people with high professional standards who have the courage, who have the professional training, and who have the national sense to ask the questions that need to be asked. And therefore, allow me to finish my discourse by just warning against a couple of trends which we must not learn, which we must learn. Number one, no media should ever peddle lies. Number two, no media should become tools of propaganda. Number three, no media should dehumanize nations, peoples, and religions. Number four, no media should blindly become a cheerleader for war. Number six, no media should mislead public opinion. Today, ladies and gentlemen, India is paying a price for weaponizing its media on hate and lies. And we must learn from this blunder of the Indian media. And therefore, we must arm our own Pakistani media with the courage to question, to verify, to say the truth, and not become warmongers, but tools for waging peace and not war. Thank you.
Sir. With a Master's in War Studies, Air Marshal Masood Akhtar was appointed as the Director General, Air Intelligence and National Accountability Bureau and has commanded a squadron, fighter wing and operational base. He is the recipient of Hilal-e-Imtiaz, Sitara-e-Imtiaz and Tamma-e-Basalat. He has also defended Pakistan at the Royal United Services Institute and Institute of International Strategic Studies in the UK. I would now request Air Marshal Masood Akhtar retired to come to the podium and give a talk on the 90-hour standoff, Indian Force Strategic Strike and Pakistan's response.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Habibullah, Dada Bhai Sahab, staff of the think tank, excellencies, defense attaches, and friends, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum. Pleasure to be with you to share my views on this great commemorative event covering what happened last year on this very day. This, at the outset, I must tell you how crucial, how important it is to all of us. It is the second red letter day of Pakistan Air Force. The first one was when Alam Sahab shot 5 aeroplanes in 1 minute, 5 hunters, and this is the second one. What happened on this day? Hindutva motivated Prime Minister Modi, he decided to violate the sovereignty of Pakistan and sent a large package of fighter and bomber strike aircraft into Pakistan to strike targets across the international border. And what exactly happened was that on 14th of February, there was this kid, Dar, who was an Indian national. He drove an Indian truck. He had RDX that was Indian. And he went and blew himself up in the reserve police convoy, killed 30 people. And lo and behold, as expected, they blamed Pakistan and they decided to violate our sovereignty. So on 26th night, around 1:30, 12 Mirages equipped with Israeli-made spice bombs, they took off from Gwalior, stayed low altitude. They were supported by a number of Sukhoi 30s as escorts and aided by the AWACS and of course air-to-air refuelers, because on the way back they were run low on fuel. So they came in from the southeasterly direction. We had our combat air patrols in place. Air Marshal Hari Kumar, who was the AOC Western Air Command, he writes in an article just today that at that time there was only one cap. There was a cap, and this was an F-16 cap over Marine. And to divert that cap, they sent in a strike package towards Bhabalpur, which was Jaguars aided by Su-30. So this cap, so he's wrong. There were more combat air patrols standing by. But obviously they had not one, but probably two deceptions. So as they went southwards, because air power cannot be everywhere. So that is the time these people came in, rose up, climbed to 30,000-40,000 feet. Our radars picked them up, and we immediately diverted the cap northwards toward Muzaffarabad. We scrambled more aeroplanes. The moment the AWACS picked up these caps, they informed the fighter pilots there, and they hastily turned northwards, came and stayed in our territory for 1 minute, and penetrated to no more than 10 nautical miles, loaded their weapons, and hastily made an exit. These weapons, of course, traveled about 40 kilometers and hit the target at Jabba, which was not the actual one, and thank goodness for this, because otherwise they would have written off 200 plus young children in a madrasa who were supposed to be there learning Quran. So that was their part. Now our part started. Immediately, of course, everybody knew, and next morning the political military leadership went into a huddle, and they decided, I think the Prime Minister gave two objectives. The military objective was restore military deterrence, and the political objective was that re-establish sovereignty of Pakistan. So the Air Force leadership had their own meeting, led by the Chief of Air Staff, who has DCS operations. And Mujahid Anwar, he actually led this Air Force like a tiger at that time. I must inform you that what Mr. Asad Umar said in the assembly, and it really warmed my heart. He said, here was an air chief who commanded a group which was half the size, if not 1/3, and he sounded so confident, full of belief, it seemed as if he's commanding the other side. So they decided that there will be a response, because no lives had been lost, no property had been damaged. So they said three things. One, it is going to be calibrated. Two, graduated. And three, most importantly, proportionate. And for twofold reasons. One, morality, that we are going to take targets out, and we will not damage any property or kill people. And two, do not give any pretext to the Indian leadership to escalate the conflict. So we chose a time and place of our conflict, which was of strike the next day, and these two JF-17s, of course, more took off at that time with locally made bombs, which, because they had range extension kits, the 1,000-pounder bombs. So they launched the REKs, and there were 4 Mirages that took off with H-4 weapons. And they struck targets in the Rajouri, Punch areas, and Nashara area. And of course, some of these images have already been made public, which clearly show that the H-4 weapon, because it can give a good TV image, they actually they looked at the ammunition dump that they were wanting to strike. At the last moment, they took the impact point and the paper away,
and the bombs fell in vacant air. This was a planned maneuver. Even yesterday, the Indian Air Chief was saying they did not damage anything. This was absolutely planned. And once the bombs are lobbed, now that is the time all hell breaks loose, because till then they had not known that we are going to respond. Actually, the last day, throughout the night on 26th and 26th day, the Indian air power was up in strength, expecting a riposte, which never came. We chose a time and place, and this was 9:30 the next morning. We didn't choose dusk, we didn't choose dawn, because that is the normal time you have deception and you are able to surprise the enemy. So when these aeroplanes went and lobbed the bombs and came back, now at that time Hari Kumar says today that they had a Mirage 2000 cap in the area, they had a Sukhoi 30 cap in the area. So he accepts that, but no MiG-21s at that time. And our F-16s, unlike theirs, they stood at 30,000 feet around in some localities of Azad Kashmir. Now that is the time, one Sukhoi 30, two Sukhoi 30s, they come towards the F-16s, and this young kid, Coordinator Hassan Siddiqui, he lobs after filtering all information, because there's a lot of work in the cockpit, unlike what we used to do in the Reagan beat site F-6s and F-7s. So he lobs a BVR and takes out the Sukhoi 30. The same day, the Indian television reports the death of 2 fighter pilots in a road accident, but they don't accept it. The Indian Air Vice Marshal, and this video was shown yesterday also, he actually shows the pieces of that AMRAAM of the BVR, but he does not accept that this came out of the wreckage of the Sukhoi 30. So that's the proof that we actually knocked at Sukhoi 30, it fell in their area. Now this is the time that panic sets in. We used our EW assets, the way Alan Vaughan says over here in the short video. We used our AVACs, and all of a sudden, because we were monitoring their radio telephony also, so all of a sudden the calls come from the Sukhoi 30 that they are having data link synchronization problem, because there were more C-130s. Hari Kumar accepts only 2 of them. And so they abort the mission. The Mirage 2000, which are very superior aeroplanes, but when you do not have situational awareness, and when you have, I would say very humbly, there are young guns sitting over here, air marshals, not young guns, they are old enough. The young guns, of course, are Hassan Siddiqui. They were young when we were air marshals. So these people, this is the time when they scramble more. So Mirage 2000, they say they have aerial intercept radar problems, abort the mission. So they scramble 5 MiG-21s. Abhinandan stays low altitude in the backdrop of Parmandal range so that the radars are not able to pick up. But the moment he pulls up and we are looking down on him and our radars are painting him. So the moment he pulls up, Wing Commander Noman, who was in a grind, he pulls up, quickly samples all the information and lobs a BVR and shoots Abhinandan down, and rest all is history. They claimed even yesterday, Air Chief Marshal Bhadoria claimed that he shot an F-16. It's not true at all, because international observers are there, and like yesterday Air Marshal Wasimuddin was saying, actually, the moment you lose an F-16, the entire world will know this. And of course, they also said Air Marshal Wasimuddin, who is now retired, his son, Coordinator Shazazuddin, was shot down. And the picture they painted was of a very plucky and audacious fighter pilot by the name of Meher Gul, Group Captain Meher Gul. He was in China. He had a photograph of the Sukhoi 30 that was shown that he's the one that we shot, and he fell martyr. Azazuddin, this plucky fighter pilot, who is a young, thin, very, very brave and very aggressive. So he was ferrying, during this operation, he was ferrying a formation of 3 F-7 PGs, and to show to the Indians, he kept his call sign Shahzaz leader, Shahzaz 2, Shahzaz 3, that the Indians should monitor that Shahzaz is well and alive, and Shahzaz was actually, Wasimuddin has nobody in the Air Force. So this was a lie. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how we re-established our sovereignty. That is how we restored military deterrence. How did we do this? Number 1, we have always learned to fight outnumbered. The Indian Air Force is twice, if not one-third, we are one-third the size of they are established for 42 squadrons. They actually have 32. We are around 18 and 19. So their budget is about $10 billion a year. Ours is under $2 billion. So we fight outnumbered. So number two, legacy. I must make a mention to you, Air Marshal Najib, long time back, when he went to get H-2 weapon from South Africa, there was this English-speaking Englishman, air chief, who he wanted to introduce Pakistan Air Force. And he said, no, I know about Pakistan Air Force. He said, no, sir, I must tell you. So he said, no. When the air chief of a country, he leads the republic they fly past, it speaks volumes. Number two, he said, no, but there is a bigger reason. When Mozambique Air Force got MiG-21 and they had a war with Mozambique and they had Mirages, they said, we didn't know how to fight a MiG-21. So they rang up their cousins in Tel Aviv. They said, tell us. So they gave big bumps of how to doghouse diagrams and energy diagrams. They said, we can't read anything out of it. They said, don't worry. We will give you a small little handwritten précis. So this handwritten précis, ladies and gentlemen, was written by who? Alam Saab. 15 minute nahi the beta? Okay. I'll conclude. So this Alam Saab and his people, and this is how Mossad picked it up from Syria, gave it to these people here in the Israeli Air Force, and Israeli Air Force gave to South African Air Force. So that's the story. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan Air Force is prepared. Pakistani military is prepared. They tried twice they tried to do surgical strikes against the army. Battle hardened, fully prepared, couldn't do a thing. So they decided to take the aerial route, and they again failed. What is likely to happen? More false flag operations after all that has been covered. With all the problems that Indians have, there will be more opportunities for the young guns to restore more sovereignties and more military deterrences. Pakistan Air Force, ladies and gentlemen, is ready. We don't have an option. Our nation does not have an option. We will have to fight outnumbered. We will have to defend ourselves over and over and over again. I am wearing this very sky blue jacket as a sky blue warrior because today's red letter day, because of these air marshals, but actually the young guns like Hassan Siddiqui and Noman gives me pride and joy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your intriguing President of Pakistan. Right. Please take your seats. You got the right bit. Pakistan has arrived. No, it's okay. कहेंगे 5 मिनट था 1 मिनट क्योंकि मैंने शॉर्टली पे फोकस किया मैंने कहा शॉर्टली वेरी शॉर्ट ब्रेक अच्छा फ्यू मिनट्स में पहुंच रहे अभी वो वहाँ से निकले बस ठीक है हाँ Ladies and gentlemen, you are again take your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise from your seats in honor of the President. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to our chief guest, the most honorable President of Pakistan, Dr. Arif Alvi. President. We will now be continuing with our seminar. The renowned journalist based in UK will be joining us today for his address through a video call. Here is Mr. Alan Warnes.
the Indian Air Force, which we were capable of doing. Also, you
we shot down the issues for the NKI. Unfortunately, not being able to show that very much, but you have enough proof to show that you actually did do that. What we showed the Pakistan Air Force showed the world that day was what you were capable of. And it doesn't really matter that the Indian Air Force has 6-to-1 ratio of fighters against you. It's how you train. And whenever I leave Pakistan, visit the Pakistan Air Force, I've always been amazed to see training, we're constantly training. And these people are very, very switched on, very professional. Many people said to me, why do you visit the Pakistan Air Force so often? And unfortunately, I'm lucky enough to be allowed to visit because it's quite an interesting, exciting and sensitive area to visit. I've been fortunate enough to visit and I've seen the training firsthand and it's pretty impressive. Not only do you train so much inside the country, you also train well outside the country. I remember going to Turkey for your first international exercise in 2004, and since then you've been a frequent overseas visitor. But that day basically shows that all the training and all the tactics works, and somehow, for some reason, the Indian Air Force overestimated you to their cost.
हिंदुस्तान की गवर्नमेंट ऑफर किसी किस्म की आप तहकीकात करवाना चाहते हैं इस सिलसिले में कि कोई पाकिस्तानी से मुलविसा हम क्या अगर आपके पास कोई एक्शनेबल इंटेलिजेंस है कि पाकिस्तानी बॉर्डर वो हम दें मैं आपको गारंटी करता हूँ कि हम एक्शन लेंगे
This Prime Minister wants zero opportunity to hold an investigation of the following incident. The radical Hindu regime got to teach Pakistan a lesson.
पाकिस्तान रिटेलिएट करने का सोचेगा नहीं पाकिस्तान रिटेलिएट करेगा
In the early hours of 26 February, multiple information was being accurate. The media response was immediate.
Once the men Pakistani Mexico, they could not have the courage to actually get out if they thought they were being together.
The Nazi found fired its class 2000 standard weapons, which had shot the targets. With the Indian bombs standoff ranging over 60 kilometers, they traversed over 50 kilometers and fell into a forested area, quite a distance from the apparent intended target, and decimated nothing more than a few pine trees.
What is the most important from
Although there was no loss of lives and property on ground, the country's sovereignty had been violated. It seemed that Narendra Modi saw punitive action against Pakistan as his key to a landslide victory in the upcoming election.
In order to show Kashmir as counterterrorism child war is clearly an issue of self-determination under the Charter and dates back to 1947. That they were willing to put the population, 1.2 billion people of this region, under the threat of nuclear war.
In the world Congress, without leadership, which is very dinosaur, human cells, mindless.
Prime Minister summoned national security meeting the same morning.
The response will come at the point and time of our visit.
There was consensus that the response had to be as measured and controlled as possible. The PAF, who was well prepared for a whole range of targeting options, was given the go-ahead by the country's Prime Minister.
very next day, recommenced early in the morning at an undisclosed airbase. Since the mission purpose was essentially to demonstrate Pakistan's resolve and capability, the general area of bombing were the open spaces in military garrisons near the line of control.
Aim of our relationship will be 100% of the target, whereas fleet is going to show the level of all strengths. It's going to be our top priority of the mission.
At 0900 hours on the morning of 27 February 2019, fighter jets from different fleet squadrons rolled down the runway.
Within the next 24 hours, the Indian Air Force was on a high level alert, but they were expecting the Pakistan Air Force to attack at night, but they didn't. They attacked during daylight hours. We were in on one level of reserve. And the attack then showed 2 large RPAs armed with 2 H-4 standard frames, backed up by JF-17s with 1,000-pound range extension kits.
Camouflages along with JF-17s headed towards their respective pre-designated targets in Indian-occupied Kashmir.
The H-4s were fired. NTC, the target designated boss, shipped away from the enemy target because now the pilot wanted big part of the away.
On that, I immediately unlocked the gun and took it to the right to unlock the data and the fact point which I had inside.
The overall is about 2,600 pounds in weight. So the DBTV is closer to the best. The aim was not to go to the level damage to be engaged at slightly offside so that engage and target at all time including and at all known way.
PAS routes like that, meanwhile, were alongside Indian air defense radars. Formation from PAS pilots was vectors for super approaching IAF fighters.
To understand that the communication between all the Indian Air Force aircraft would have been jammed. It must be included that they're up in the air, not knowing what's going on.
After sampling the target data and converting valid firing parameters, squadron leader Hassan fired air-to-air missiles.
S-230 is one part of the aircraft. It is a multi-role, almost a fifth generation platform.
Soon after the shootout, all hell broke loose in the Indian camp.
They had to really have that little extremely fast this fall. After a bomb or other parts or a piece of art, the geography, they knew what the first everything was going to do in the next couple of days.
A Mi-17 helicopter was scrambled for a search and rescue mission of downed Su-30 MK-on, but in the chaos, he was taken for a hostile unmanned aerial vehicle by the Indian Air Defense Unit at Syria, who fired a Syrian air slam, leading to a case of horrific fratricide.
And you have to ask yourself, why the Mi-17 is flying in the air? It is to many other conversations about aircraft was there on the combat search and rescue mission to pick up the downed Su-30 pilots.
Giving ongoing practice to patrolling India formations dispersed. 5 mid-flight devices of number 51 Squadron were scrambled successfully from Srinagar.
The German aircraft, which did a superb job, absolutely superb job, German communications in the Air Force.
Before he was in deadly bearings, a Vietnamese MiG-21 was hit by a missile launched by Unit Commander Nolan Polygon. It was planned
tea, ready to game, and dance, mate, they didn't know what they did. And military, ultimately, the Pakistani army came along and
shot down a super found
the news of Pakistan was shot down, only one person, and eventually there was the NKR, the absolute ghost
Prime Minister Imran Khan announced his decision to repatriate women's memorabilia to India as a gesture of solidarity and culture between the two nations.
It's just how उसको कर
It was an excellent understanding, and it is unusual honesty. A lot of Congress, they exactly the same way. It's something unique.
After that, the Indian government started lying president.
And you were ready for the executive.
That is it. You know that? We have R-73 still attached to the motorway and still has the prospecting unit underneath. And this is the missile which many in India claim actually shot down the F-16, which as you can see is still here.
The aerial engagement over Kashmir on 27 February 2019 not only defined growing Indian threats to Pakistan, but it also highlighted Kashmir issue among ever before. More leaders calling out for a peaceful resolution of this dispute.
South Asia cannot be separated from the Kashmir issue.
Because I heard so much about Kashmir. It's such a beautiful land. It's supposed to be such a beautiful part of the world. Right now, there's just bombs all over. Everybody got bombs. It's a terrible situation. It's been going on for many years.
All the heads of states are actually aware of the Kashmir issue today, and they understand the consequences if this goes wrong. Pakistan security forces are strong enough, are powerful enough to handle any sort of situation.
Our next speaker is the Special Assistant to the Prime Minister of Pakistan on the National Security Division. Mueed Yusuf is a Pakistani scholar who has previously served as the Chairman of Strategic Policy Planning Cell and the Associate Vice President at the Asia Center at the United States Institute of Peace. Please, sir, we welcome you on stage to deliberate on the South Asian security threats.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me thank CPSD, Gil Zishan and others for this opportunity. I'm still very new to what I'm doing, so I always start with the caveat, which is that from time to time I end up wearing my analyst hat more than my official hat. So this is going to be a mix again. Partly because what we've just seen overwhelms me and I'm sure everybody else in this crowd. So let me just begin by saluting our armed forces once again. Yesterday we had a very successful event with the Prime Minister in the chair at the PM office, again commemorating this occasion. You know, the theme of your seminar here, and what I've been asked to talk about, the threat to South Asia. I'll tell you that when we were discussing this commemoration, not only yesterday's event, but this moment, there was one fundamental direction given to me as we were thinking through this, which is we are a responsible nation that has acted with restraint last year, that will continue to act with restraint whenever something like this happens. But we are also very clear that our resolve to respond to any misadventure remains. The tagline for this, though, throughout it was stressed to me, was that Pakistan wants peace. And I stand here responsibly in front of you to say that even despite everything that we are seeing happen on our eastern front, Pakistan still wants peace in the region. Let me though now unpack why that peace has remained elusive. And at least I, quite frankly, like the Prime Minister has said many times, remain fairly pessimistic. Let me first touch on the theme of responsibility. This is very important to note. This shows the character of who we are. Because quite frankly, in another country, where despite all of what we've seen on the screen, the last week has been about warmongering, about reliving the fiction, about creating lies on what happened. And here we are, rather than talking about what we could and creating a war frenzy, we are stressing again and again the two words, responsibility and peace. And this is a message for us, but this is also a message for the world. How responsible? One, all the messaging throughout this last week has been built around that, despite whatever may come from the other side. Second, whatever may be happening on our eastern front, there is not a single word that you have found from the entire world, and we don't usually get sympathy from much of the world when it comes to India, Pakistan. There's not a single word that has criticized Pakistan's behavior since August 5th. Not one independent word that says that. Why? Because it is a conscious policy decision that we will maintain our principled stance on every issue, but beyond that, we are the party that is responsible and mature and will continue to engage in a long-term political, moral and diplomatic struggle for the Kashmir cause. A word about Kashmir. We've talked a lot about what is happening there. I'm sure it came up today. I'm sure it will come up again. But I want to make a different point today. This has been raised to me and others. We meet sort of foreign dignitaries. And again, the conversation goes back to, oh, it's an India-Pakistan dispute and you really are talking about real estate. I want to reiterate Pakistan's position since August 5th and before, but especially since August 5th because it's come up so many times. What are we saying? There are 2 points that Pakistan has continued to make to the world. Number 1, universal human rights. Just ensure that the 8 million who are in an open jail get the right that every human being is born with, which is codified in international law and conventions, and the entire world, including those who talk about human rights more than everybody else, has accepted it as the norm. That's point number 1. That's the only thing we are asking on that. Fundamental human rights of the Kashmiris who are in an open jail no less since August 5th. And what is the second point? The world is governed, as anarchic as it may be, by certain laws called the international law. lawyers are sitting here, I can see Temur and others. What are we saying? Just follow the very law and the very resolutions you, the world, came up with to solve this dispute. There is not a third message here. And if you add these two messages, what does it get to? A normal life for the Kashmiri and a right to self-determination. That's it. There is no other conversation here. The word real estate does not show up in anything that we are saying. And the question, quite frankly, I ask my colleagues and counterparts from other countries is, you tell us, how else can Pakistan show its responsibility and maturity in the face of everything that we are getting from our eastern neighbor? And I will promise you, there's not one who has come to me and said, we have a better idea than what you're doing. So I think it's about time that this policy, this vision, this mindset that comes from the leadership, both civil and military, should be internalized both at home but also by the world, by the international community that keeps talking about this and quite frankly, unfortunately, has not done nearly as much as one would have hoped. Let me also quickly touch upon our eastern neighbor. Look, I want to be clear about one thing. What is happening in India is worrying the entire world. Not only Pakistan, the entire world. Pick up the Western press, pick up every single piece of writing that you get. Just today, this morning, the American Human Rights Group has again sort of formally raised concern about what has been happening in New Delhi. But the one thing I want to clarify, the issue of Kashmir is a separate, self-contained, internationally recognized dispute. Because I've seen some effort to lump this with, oh, all of India. No, Kashmir is not India. Kashmir is a conversation about an international dispute, and what is happening in India is a completely separate thing. And the only reason that our Prime Minister yesterday and many times before has continued to raise the issue of what is happening is because of our worry that it will directly affect us. And at least now let me wear my analyst's hat. I've written 2 books on counterterrorism and counterinsurgency. There is absolutely no way for any country, any state, to put this genie back in the bottle once you start going to the extent of rewriting history and brainwashing minds. You cannot. There is no evidence in modern history that that has been achieved. And if that's true, then it's my legitimate right not to talk about what is happening, absolutely, but my legitimate right to raise concern with the world on how will we manage stability in this region if you get to a point where this mayhem starts to spill over, if there are refugee issues. All of this has been talked about by the Pakistani leadership in this spirit. There's no meddling, there's no conversation on what is happening. The issue is, when you come to us and talk about South Asian security and stability, we are telling you again and again that there is one root cause for that to happen. If you're not going to address that root cause, no matter what else we do, it's just putting band-aids on the problem. That is why we are raising this issue. That is why the leadership keeps talking about it. And that is why it is crucial for the world to recognize just how dangerous this situation is. I was given 10 minutes, so let me make one other point and then conclude, which is, don't forget Pakistan's western border. Don't forget what is happening as we speak. The Pakistani leadership is in Qatar. Why? Because thanks to Pakistan and other partners, of course, we have managed to reach what seemed impossible for years and years. When I was in the US, it was famously called America's longest war. Today, the US and everybody else is recognizing that that longest war would have gone on for much longer had this impending peace agreement not been signed. And inshallah, as it goes through in the next couple of days, there's another phase after this. I mean, there's a lot more to be done in Afghanistan to get to real peace. But Pakistan's role was to facilitate this phase of that negotiation for now. And we've managed that, and the world has recognized it. Now from here, the intra-Afghan dialogue, as it's called, is really Afghans who have to figure out what they want in terms of the future of their country. It is not for Pakistan or anybody else to decide, but let me also make it clear. Because it is for Afghanistan to decide, it is also not for Pakistan to take the blame for whatever happens from here on in. It's not going to be a smooth process, everybody knows this. Pakistan has facilitated this beyond what we were asked to do. And you know, I was talking, I'll share with you, I was talking to a couple of Western interlocutors. And you know, there's always this instrumental view of Pakistan has held, but it needs to do this, etc. And I told them, look, once I came in the system, I realized one thing, which is very troubling for me, as somebody who's looking at national security issues. The amount of time, actual clock time, Pakistani leadership has spent on Afghanistan is very unfair to be asked. We have so many issues in the country. You are asking us to spend the opportunity cost of that time, meeting after meeting. People have to realize how much Pakistan has done. And so, let me just bring all of this together. If what I have described to you was not the vision of the government, not the vision of the state, you wouldn't have seen a pattern of peacemaking from Pakistan. Whether it's the Afghan negotiations, or it's our view on India, our principled stand and mature stand on India, or it is Iran and Saudi Arabia, or it is whatever. That is the direction given by the leadership very clearly. And Pakistan will continue to do that against odds. It's not easy when you go and help friends. But we will keep doing that. So I wanted to put that on the table. If South Asian security is under threat, please don't come and ask me. Look around the region, figure out, go and help before it is too late. Let me just end once again by saluting our armed forces for what we've seen here, for what we saw yesterday in our event, and for what they continue to do for us every single day without us realizing behind the scenes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insight on this topic. Before we conclude this seminar with a speech from our guest of honor, I would like to ask Habibullah Dadabhoy, Director Dadabhoy Group of Companies and Vice Chairman at DBTV, to come up on stage and thank our chief guests, distinguished speakers, and audience who honored us today with their time and presence.
तौहीद की अमानत सीनों में है हमारे, आसान नहीं मिटाना नाम और निशान हमारा। बातिल से दबने वाले ए आसमान नहीं हम, 100 बार कर चुका है तू इम्तिहान हमारा। I present my salutation to the courageous, responsible and peace-loving leadership of Pakistan, to the forces of Pakistan and to the resilient people of Pakistan. Honorable President, distinguished speakers, Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of CPSD and the entire, let me call it, fraternity of peace, extend a very hearty thanks to all the guest speakers for gracing your important presence and sharing with us your thoughts and opinions. Today, we have learned a great deal and are very much indebted to all the speakers and guests here, who have discussed the present and future of Indian-occupied Kashmir and Pakistan. There was a variety of constructive pondering on the various aspects of Indian atrocities against Muslims and minorities in the region, and how we can play our role in putting a stop to the dangerous game of dominance being played by India. Ladies and gentlemen, Muslims have been facing ferocity for the past 7 years from the ruling government of BJP in India and Kashmir. Narendra Modi's majoritarian politics in the post-secular India has given birth to religious prosecution, resembling Hitler's ideology of racial purity. This transformation in his politics has introduced partisan legislature inside India and an extremely ethno-nationalist foreign policy towards its neighbors, particularly Pakistan. After facing a humiliating defeat as a result of the aerial engagement between Pakistan and India on this very day, India has gotten more hostile towards Pakistan and towards the entire region of Southeast Asia. In the past year, India has introduced 3 major laws that strip Muslims and Kashmiris of their basic human and civil rights. The underlying rationale behind all these decisions implemented by Modi and his government is to secure the interests of Hindus at the cost of Muslims and other minorities, to show their commitment to the Hindutva project. Ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned by guest speakers before me, the trend of Hindutva politics and the offensive posture of India towards Pakistan has been becoming more prominent in the past few years. Therefore, a dire need for the introduction of a peace-friendly policy has emerged in the region. This seminar has been an outstanding event as our minds have been assailed by a torrent of information and interpretations. I would like to thank our guest of honor, His Excellency the President of Pakistan, Dr. Arif Alvi, who despite his busy schedule has found time to grace us with his presence and share his valuable opinion with us. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation of Barrister Mohammad Saif for his insight on the historic perspective and legal aspects of the Kashmir issue. Further, we are grateful to Ms. Mishal Malik for demonstrating her expertise on humanitarian crisis in the Indian-occupied Kashmir. I also wish to express my gratitude to Barrister Taimur Malik for providing us with an explanation on the international perception of Kashmir issue and the opportunities available for Pakistan. I must also mention our deep sense of appreciation for Air Marshal Masood Akhtar for his talk on 90-hour standoff, Indian false flag surgical strike and Pakistan's response. I am also very grateful to Mr. Fahad Hussain for his in-depth analysis of the role of media in the form of warmongering and peace journalism. Moreover, a big thank you to Mr. Alan Bonds for his detailed account on the air battle of 27 February 2019. Last but not the least, my team and I would like to acknowledge our gratitude to Dr. Mueed Yusuf for exposing his reflections on South Asian security threats. We are all inspired by your great work. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record a very warm thanks to DBTV for providing the logistic support and guidance their team has extended to all of us during the seminar. I want to appreciate Team CPSD for their untiring effort in planning, coordination and execution of this seminar, ably led by Brigadier Zishan. Mr. President, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, once again I want to affirm that we are all most grateful for your presence. We thank you for being with us this morning and afternoon. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Pakistan's insistence on peace has been very clear. Despite the fact that we are a nuclear power, we are a responsible nuclear power. And on the other hand, we see a belligerent, irresponsible power which is playing with fire, will destroy itself in the process, but we want to prevent harm to the Kashmiri people. Pakistan has committed to stand by the Kashmir dispute in a legal manner, in all legal forms around the world, morally, ethically, diplomatically, and support that cause in every way possible. And we will continue to do so.
Put your hands together for His Excellency, the President of Pakistan, Mr. Arif Alvi. Special Assistant
Air Marshal Masood Akhtar,
Mrs. Mishal Malik, Mr. Fahad Hussain, Barrister Taimur Malik, I would now request Mr. Habibullah Dadaboy to present and honor our chief guest, the President of Pakistan, with a souvenir. Our very honorable chief guest, President Arif Alvi, is requested to come to the podium for a keynote address.
Mr. Abdullah Dadbhai, Chairman, Center for Peace, Security and Development Studies, CPSD, Mr. Habibullah Dadbhai, CEO, Digital Broadcast TV, Mohtarama Mishal Malik Sahiba, Mohid Yusuf Sahab, Senator Sahiba Sahab, दोस्तों साथियों फाद हुसैन दोस्तों साथियों अस्सलाम वालेकुम. I feel honored to be a part of this occasion and commemorating the fact that on the same day last year Pakistan showed its brilliance. At the same time Pakistan showed its intention for peace. Actually my entire speech was summarized in a few statements which you saw here. But that dialogue and that insistence will never change. Pakistan has wanted peace in the region, that will never change. Pakistan is pointing out to a belligerent India and its attitude, that may change. And Pakistan's intention to support the Kashmir's cause comes out of the legal responsibility which Pakistan has, its moral responsibility, and the fact that the Kashmiris are our brothers, and what they were promised at the time of partition, and promised by a nascent United Nations and a new Pakistan together in the community of the nations, that promise has to be delivered. So our intention has been the same, will remain the same. But what has happened over the past few years, Pakistan cannot close its eyes on that. And as I mentioned, it worries me, the situation today worries me tremendously. It is going exactly as what I have been thinking it will go into unless prevention is done. Last year, if I pick up what I have been saying, and it was nothing new, I am sure a lot of you also are predicting the same direction. We know when you polarize societies, very rarely does the leadership take it out of that polarization. It generally takes about 20 or 30 years. That cycle is not short. And let me give you an example. When the entire world was worried about the Soviet influence in Afghanistan, all of us together, including the United States and other nations, we constructed a jihadi liberation of Afghanistan. And when the Soviet Union withdrew from there, we thought that we'll switch off the button and jihad is over. Doesn't happen like that. The entire psyche of our people and the psyche of the Muslim Ummah had been stoked by that situation. Jihad meant liberation, and it continued. So whenever you polarize the people in any manner, whether on racial grounds, whether on ethnic grounds, or whether on linguistic grounds, that polarization has its momentum and goes on for at least a generation or two before the damage caused by that becomes evident, and nations then retract from that. Lessons are learned over generations. Lessons are then forgotten after a few generations also. I am also convinced of that. Because I still remember, to construct my argument, let me tell you, I still remember that in the 70s when I was studying in the United States had lost more than 50,000 lives in Vietnam. And the country felt war is abhorrent, war should not be gotten into, and it was a world where the United States had, we thought, learned a lesson, and they thought they learned a lesson. But then later on, things kept on going in the same direction because a generation learns a lesson and promptly forgets. But between India and Pakistan, what has happened? Pakistan was liberated 70 years ago, 71 years ago, and there were promises made. There were principles of division of British India. And those principles were, of course, legally drafted, understood, clearly understood, but then mischief was played on us. That sowed the seeds of disharmony between the two countries. Mr. Gandhi was killed by an RSS, the mother party of BJP, by an RSS individual because he was talking about peace and a secular India. Today the same gentleman, the same person, not gentleman, the same person who was the murderer of Gandhi is being elevated out of being a murderer into a hero in some sectors of India. But then the polarization, I may disagree a little bit with what Mohit mentioned here. He said Kashmir is different and what's happening in India is different. No. Our histories and principles were together. In fact, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, when Pakistan was formed, insisted on two individuals, Chaudhry Khalifuzzaman Sahab and Nawab Muhammad Ismail Khan of Meerut. He insisted that the responsibility of the well-being of the Indian Muslims also is a part of partition. And that he requested these two individuals to stay in India and ensure the fact that there is peace between communities. Chaudhry Khalifuzzaman Sahab migrated to Pakistan, but Nawab Muhammad Ismail Khan stayed in India, although his children had moved to Pakistan. So Kashmir is definitely an unfinished agenda of partition. And those who used to question the two-nation theory of Qaid-e-Azam, today in the Parliament of India, it is being said that Qaid-e-Azam actually predicted that these two nations need to be peacefully separated and then to uphold the principles of human rights between them, giving each other's minorities the rights which Qaid-e-Azam talked about. Now that is the history of Pakistan. It was founded on democratic principles. It was founded by a democratic vote and on the principles defined. So when the Kashmir issue came up, there was a nascent United Nations, a very young United Nations, where the world hoped for peace and hoped for resolution after the experience of the League of Nations in the First World War. The United Nations was a center. We hoped that it will deliver peace. Today, that peace is elusive. Those decisions escape us because what is more important are vested interests. Nobody thought in the 50s that there would be vested interests rather than principles ruling on decisions between nations. If there are vested interests, you don't need a United Nations. You can sit together as a group anywhere, decide to provoke war, decide to ensure the fact that some minorities or some majorities in regions which were promised freedom are not given freedom. So what is happening in the direction, and I must not miss out in congratulating our Pakistan Air Force and Pakistan Army for defeating terrorism over the last decades and for ensuring the fact that our borders are secure, whether from the air or from the ground or from the sea. A remarkable display of being small, of limited in resources, but reacting in a manner when you shoot down 2 Indian planes. Remarkable. It fills my chest with pride that we are a strong people defended by a very strong army. So nobody can lift his hand against us. But we have been responsible. Remember the fact that in 1974, there was no nuclear arms race in this region. Remember that in 1974, India blasted a so-called peaceful nuclear device. Have you ever heard that term? A peaceful nuclear device. That's the only country which has ever put a term, this is fake news. But remember that when we talk about fake news, this is fake news. Weapons of mass destruction, for example, fake news. When countries deliberately make a fool out of its own people and try to fool the world. Peaceful nuclear detonation which prompted Pakistan to ensure that fact. A smaller country, limited resources, smaller in number of people, wanted to make sure that its defense with a belligerent neighbor who has not had peace in the region also. Its interference in Sri Lanka, its interference in East Pakistan, its strangulation historically of Nepal and its resources. A belligerent India aspiring to be a permanent member of the United Nations, a belligerent India which does not understand the concept of human rights, which is famous for its killing of minorities. Don't forget the riots, I think it was 1983, the riots in Delhi against the Sikhs. More than 3,000 people Sikhs were killed in one night and they were on the streets of Delhi. Then in Gujarat, then false flag operations of the train and Pulwama, the belligerence of Hindutva India, not created by us alone. People who read may remember Khushwant Singh's book, The End of India. And the arguments being presented today and the scenery of India today and the reality of India today exactly matches what Khushwant Singh wrote in 2003, and he must have spent a couple of years writing that book. So in this century, he predicted it's the end of India, and he said Pakistan will not destroy India. India will destroy itself from inside, and that is what we are seeing. Kashmir is a reflection of the same thing. It started from Kashmir, the isolation of Muslims, the fact that India never came to terms with the establishment of Pakistan, although they forced it upon Quaid-e-Azam. Quaid-e-Azam wanted a united India, but then he realized that the politicians in India will not allow these communities to stay together. So therefore, he demanded Pakistan and dragged Pakistan into history. So what is happening in India? My relatives are in India, therefore it pains me to see what is happening in India. There were movies made immediately after division or after establishment of Pakistan, in which the same dialogue which is today on the streets of India was meant as a taunt to every Muslim. अगर तुमको पाकिस्तान या मुसलमान पसंद है तो पाकिस्तान जाओ. If you think Pakistan is a good country, go to Pakistan. Don't stay in India. That is the taunt which is there every day today in the streets of India. How can we stay away from that? It is an unfinished rights of Muslims. Pakistan must voice the rights of every minority in the world, Pakistan must voice. Of every minority, whether they're Christians, and I remember, don't forget, because sometimes what happens, these occasions are celebrated to remind ourselves what is happening. There were, in India, Christian priests were killed, churches were burned. Depends on which minority becomes a threat in which region. It's not a question of numbers. So when the Sikh minority were under threat, they were killed. Muslim minority has been under threat, so there were riots in Ahmedabad, there were riots in Gujarat, there were riots in Meerut, there are riots today also. First, the entire history of genocide has always been that first you disenfranchise a minority in a country based on any grounds, whether it's racial, whether they are Jews, whether it's separate language, you first isolate them that you don't belong here, you're not citizens of this place. Then let the public react, burn their shops, kill them, isolate them, and then it leads to a genocide. We have seen that history happening in Europe. We have seen that happening in Myanmar, where there are people in Rohingya, and we are predicting that will happen in India. So this is the time for the international community to react, to understand the fact. It is evident if you started looking at least from 2 years ago what was happening in India, the Indian politicians tried to fool. There is no difference. I don't think there is a difference of religion in a manner which I believe the Hindus are peaceful, the Muslims are peaceful. It is the politicians in India which are driving the Hindutva machine and tank over the Muslims. So I think today it is very important that the world understand what is happening. Pakistan showed the example of responsibility. I mentioned the fact that in 1974 there was a so-called peaceful nuclear blast by India, prompted Pakistan to take measures and steps. Then there was in 1999, there was a few nuclear blasts by India, again forcing Pakistan to show that we can defend ourselves. So the history of what has been happening has been of animosity between countries, of warmongering between countries is happening since a long time, so we cannot separate them away from each other. Pakistan has learned, like I mentioned, Pakistan has learned not to polarize its own people. Pakistan has learned that if you polarize your own people, there is a possibility of terrorism. Pakistan has battled terrorism better than any country in the world. I make that statement by conviction and by history, that trillions of dollars have been spent on fighting terrorism, but Pakistan is the most successful country. We have lost lives. We lost probably 100,000 lives in that, but we finally managed to defeat them. So Pakistan has learned non-polarization. Pakistan has learned to fight terrorism, and it fights it. Pakistan has learned that hosting refugees is an expensive venture, but we show to the world, the high and mighty from throughout the world have been giving us lessons on human rights, but are not ready to open their borders for desperate immigrants running away from wars created by responsible nations in the world. But Pakistan opened its borders, not a single voice emerged. And I repeat it because I want to make sure that the Pakistani people feel proud of that. And the Union Secretary General, when he came to Pakistan, I repeated that fact, that not only did we host 5.1 million refugees and 2.7 are still here, not only that we hosted them, not only the fact that they were here, but not a single political voice I remember in the National Assembly or in the press who said that these refugees should be sent back right away or not accepted in Pakistan. Today, I am privy to a communication where 40 refugees are being refused by a country in Europe, and we show the world, you see, we don't do lip service, we've lived the human rights issue in Pakistan. That's where the country is mature. And then when you talk about a radical India and a responsible Pakistan, I must tell you, it's not the Pakistan government which is responsible. It's the people of Pakistan, the media of Pakistan, the government of Pakistan, the politicians of Pakistan, all have shown responsibility. And the best example is that in February last year and in the days building up to that February, the entire media, the entire people, the government and the armed forces talked about peace. There was a frenzy of peace on this side of the border. But there is a frenzy of war. And look at the Indian media, there is no, compare it and wait and you'll find out there was a frenzy of war in India. So Pakistan is definitely a very responsible Pakistan. Pakistan, not only the government of Pakistan, I want to insist, but all the segments, all the institutions of Pakistan have wanted peace. Now, what is the future? I believe we will keep on struggling. I believe that India may have learned its lesson. I am not sure yet. There is a resistance in India. There is a talk about Pakistan. There was even probably a Hindu girl who stood up in a public occasion and said Pakistan Zindabad. So there is an understanding in some minor class of India, but the behemoth of Modi's government is still going to react and continue to react. I fear that generally what happens is when there is resistance, they will tighten their belts. What you saw, the images shake the world, and that's why I believe the images from Kashmir coming out of what India has been doing is very important, because Pakistan has made a commitment to itself that it wants peace, it wants to fight the Kashmir cause in every forum, which includes the media and the social media. These images are responsible. And for those of you, I would like to recall that I forget the name of the Syrian boy who drowned in the Mediterranean. That image must have created shock in the entire world. So these images are important. So the images coming from Kashmir, and that is why India has seized Kashmir. It's still under siege. It's like a prison. But ladies and gentlemen, don't forget the fact that there are reports, there are images that India is constructing prisons for the people who will be disenfranchised in their registration of the Citizenship Amendment Act. That's what they did in Assam. What is that for? Are they going to send those people somewhere, or just isolating them in the ghettos, in concentration camps? Not only, the government has said that they've created those prisons. And what are they asking for? Even in Pakistan, if you go around asking the poor that you bring your property document of your grandfather, how many poor people will have property documents of their grandfather? And if you don't have them, there are two boxes. If you don't bring the property documents, then if you're a Hindu, you will get a nationality. If you are if you are a Muslim, you won't. So that's a blatant something which the Muslims of India have recognized. Now the reaction, the knee-jerk reaction of the BJP government is what you have been seeing all around. The images what happened at the Babri Mosque. Those images from Delhi you have seen. So I believe things may not be going in the right direction. And that is why I heard a very responsible statement by the Prime Minister yesterday. He said the international community, India is in a crisis. He said the international community must guide India out of that crisis. Very responsible. How more responsible can he be? That they must guide India out of that crisis. I am worried about all those in India who will go through this chaos. Their books written by Rana Ayub, a journalist, on the Gujarat crisis, and inside information. The judiciary helped liberate those criminals, and there are allegations against Amit Shah also, there are against Mr. Modi also, and these are not new allegations. The United States government for almost a decade did not give a visa to Mr. Modi, because all the evidence pointed that in the Gujarat riots, his government was responsible, And if the books you read coming out of there, they were given the assurance that you do what you want to for 3 days, kill, rape, burn. You will not be touched for 3 days. But then we'll have to show some writ of the state. These are statements made by responsible people, by Mr. Modi and Mr. Amit Shah, etc. before those riots happened. Went on for 3 days. Every criminal responsible almost everyone has been released. No action has been taken. The judge somehow unexplainably died for a cause, nobody knows how he died, and who was a little sympathetic to the cause. So ladies and gentlemen, having said all that, I believe there is no more evidence which needs to be said. And during Mr. Trump's visit, what happened in Delhi was the biggest example that India is sick and has a problem. And it must be addressed by international pressure, because that may work. But unfortunately, my objection to all those strategists sitting among you is the fact that what if I look at the chessboard of this region, there are minorities in India under pressure, there is the Kashmir issue, Pakistan has helped achieve peace in Afghanistan, Pakistan wants peace for its own economic development, for the development of its own people, it insists on peace. And then we have India, which is it has not participated in a SAARC council for 10 or 12 years today. So every effort at regional peace has vanished into thin air. All their promises have vanished into thin air. What Nehru said has vanished into thin air. What all the leaders of India have said all along this time has vanished into thin air. No promise they will carry, no legal verdict, no legal situation emanating from the United Nations they would carry. I am awaiting the UN High Commissioner's report on refugees. I hope there is a third report which comes out, which looks at Kashmir after August 5. I am hoping that the secular people living in India will be able to restrict whatever is happening, and this bandwagon of Modi, Hindutva, RSS will stop someday, soon enough, before a lot of killings happen. These riots and this destruction cause a lot of losses, and those people who try to emerge have lifted themselves up. You know, there may be only 2% members in the parliament in India who are Muslims. Although, according to Indian statistical figures, there are 13 to 14% at least Muslims in India, but only 2% in the parliament. How can they defend themselves? How can they voice whatever they want to voice? So, I believe Pakistan has been very responsible. It will continue on this track. I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan wants peace. Pakistan is looking for peace. But Pakistan will never compromise on the Kashmir issue. And Kashmir issue, again, as mentioned by Mohit, Kashmir issue is people. It's not real estate, it's people. We are concerned about the people. Pakistan will stand by them. Pakistan will never abandon them. Pakistan will make all sacrifices which are necessary. And the Prime Minister warned India, and we continue as a state, as my responsibility, to warn India not to do any false flag operation to try and hit Pakistan. Pulwama had nothing to do with Pakistan. Imagine our Prime Minister saying that if you have evidence, let us know. If you have any idea, let us know. We will help investigate if anything happened from the Pakistan side. We are sure it didn't happen, but just to reassure them that we are ready to investigate, and the result is that they attack Pakistan. The first time since 1965 they come into Pakistan territory and attack us. And I'm proud of the armed forces for having withstood that attack and making us proud as a nation. But this nation is a great country rising. Human rights, I gave the example, learned from terrorism, insisting on peace, have learned not to polarize our own people. And as our economy improves, it will create a greater space for a responsible Pakistan, ensuring the fact that we take on all countries which need to demonstrate a responsible world order based on principles, based on merit, rather than vested interests and financial exploitation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
तेरा तू शाहीन है परवाज है काम तेरा तेरे सामने आसमां और भी हैं. Thank you, Mr. President, for your inspirational and motivational address to the audience. Before we conclude our program, I would invite the first row to please come up on stage to pose for a group picture which will serve as a memoir of this seminar. I would also request all the other guests to please remain seated. Second row, please. I would also request the second row to please come up on stage to pose for the group picture. Maybe put it on. Join us for lunch outside in the lawn. The guests in the first 3 rows are requested to join us for lunch in the adjacent room. Our team will guide you to the respective dining areas. Thank you so much for joining us today, and Allah Hafiz.